Harvey's Lake Tahoe Hotel and Casino in State Line, Nevada received thousands of tourists from California, each year seeking fun and entertainment and a shot at winning big money. They love putting money at risk. It can be sports betting, table games, lotteries. They just love to bet. They feel alive and get an adrenaline rush when they play the games. And on December 2nd, 2007, Julia Ellis was one of those patrons at Harvey's Lake Tahoe Hotel and Casino. While on the premises, Julia ordered a bottle of water and was given a bottle marked Harrah's Purified Drinking Water. Julia opened the sealed bottle and drank, but instead of plain old drinking water in this bottle, it contained Super Trump, a highly caustic cleaning substance. The substance is odorless and colorless, and because Julia drank a large swallow of the substance, it resulted in second and third degree burns to her esophagus, nearly killing her. Someone had poured this Super Trump in a Harrah's water bottle, and that person was never identified. The injury left her with a severe stricture of the esophagus, which required dozens of physician-administrated dilation procedures, as well as several dozen self-administrated dilations. As a result of having a compromised esophagus, Julia has had and continues to have episodes where food catches in her throat. Today, the Insider Exclusive goes behind the headlines in casino food safety, Julia Ellis's nightmare story, to reveal for the first time how Julia's attorney, Chris Dolan, at the Dolan Law Firm, successfully got justice for Julia. In fact, on the very first day of jury selection, the defendants admitted liability. A Harvey's employee had apparently poured the solution from its large storage container into an empty, unmarked Harrah's water bottle and left it in the kitchen, where it was soon thereafter served to Ellis. This case definitely caused Harvey's to implement a beverage management safety and control program, and it established that should Harvey's harm a patron who was lured to Nevada from San Francisco through advertising, they would be held responsible in San Francisco. Hi, I'm Steve Murphy, and this is the Insider Exclusive, live from San Francisco. It is my great pleasure to introduce Chris Dolan to the show. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us, our audience, a little bit about what type of law your law firm practices.
Our practice is somewhat unique in that we work only on behalf of individuals and not large companies or insurance agencies. We represent folks who find themselves in some state of tragedy, who come to us to help find a solution.
Now, there are a lot of lawyers who do represent insurance companies, and that seems almost kind of like a cushy job, an easier job than being a trial lawyer. Why are you a trial lawyer that represents people on contingency?
I could never work on the other side trying to deprive people of compensation for what happened to them. And I think in my own personal experience that when I was younger, I was not one of the big people. I was not a strong and powerful person. And I saw a lot of injustice, and I realized that there was a way for me to be powerful and to help myself and others, and that was using my mind.
Today we're going to talk about Julia Ellis's case, and boy, what a story. But before we get into what happened to her, tell us a little bit about Julia Ellis. Who is she?
Julia Ellis is a lovely woman who was a fun-loving woman. She's a mother of 4 children, a woman who worked hard as a property manager, and someone who liked to enjoy her life. She has a real zest for life, and that's what brought her to the place where this happened.
About 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, in December 2007, she, like many other Californians, went up to stateside Nevada, to Harvey's Casino, to enjoy her day at the casino. Walk us through what happened to her at the...
Well, just like most of us, she went in to enjoy the casino, to play some slot poker at the bar, and her gentleman friend at that time was gambling at the tables. And she sat down at the bar and she ordered a bottle of water. She got a bottle of water like all of us do every day, and the bartender had cracked the seal. She took it, she swallowed it, and she began to feel like she was on fire and burning from the inside out.
This substance that she was actually drinking wasn't water, was it?
It was far from water. Water has a pH of 7, and you go from 1 to 14. We're at about 7 as people, because we're mostly water.
Yeah.
This had the pH of 13.5, which
What?
is what the pH of Drano is.
Yeah. It's like drinking Drano. That's what she was drinking, basically.
She was drinking a caustic substance that would peel paint.
Mm-hmm. And now she almost died from drinking this, didn't she?
She was dying.
Mm-hmm.
Right after this happened, she was literally dying because her esophagus was perforating,
Yeah.
rotting, sloughing off,
Yeah.
and that was exposing her to infection, and she was choking.
And the fact that she went over to the bartender and she handed him back the bottle and said, "This is not water," and he didn't believe her initially, did he?
Well, it wasn't quite that calm. She was
Yeah.
going like this and saying, "I'm on fire," and the
Yeah.
bartender thought that she was pulling a scam. So he poured water into a glass, the water, put it up to his lips, immediately spit it out because his lips were burning.
What were her injuries from drinking this Super Trump?
Well, her injuries are multifaceted. What you need to remember from the video that you're seeing is you're just seeing a small clip.
Yeah.
She spent 22 minutes burning before the EMTs even got there.
Right.
She was brought to the hospital and they couldn't treat her because they didn't know what she drank. So she sat there and burned for hours. So psychologically, she was horrifically damaged, and as the videos show, she was her esophagus was destroyed and then perforated and burning, and it ended up causing what they call a stricture,
Right.
which closed it down so she couldn't even pass a Cheerio down her throat.
Mm-hmm. She also suffered post-traumatic stress disorder from this whole thing, didn't she?
And post-traumatic stress disorder is very real.
Yeah.
Julia Ellis will not even touch a bottle of water. She won't drink from a bottle of water. She wakes up with nightmares. She continues, because her esophagus is still small, to choke. And
Yeah.
every time that happens, she relives this experience.
You provided us a actual video of her with her administering this self-procedure treatment where she tries to break open the scar tissue. We're showing that right now. Tell us a little bit about it while we're showing it.
Well, this is an absolutely horrific procedure which only came after they had done a number of other procedures to try to avoid this. But she has to take, in essence, a tapered, solid garden hose and force it down her throat to rip open her throat, her esophagus, so that hopefully it scars up larger.
Yeah.
And every time she did this, it was traumatizing. It's tearing open your own esophagus.
And doctors are recommending. It seems to me that if you rip something open, a scar forms on another scar.
It does, but the hope was that the scar would form larger, because the only other option that they were giving her,
Yeah.
the one that they were recommending
Right.
over this torture, was to cut out her esophagus, pull her stomach up, and
Yeah.
tie it basically to her throat.
And what would have been the harm in doing that? What kind of dangers might she have had?
Well, she wouldn't have had the ability to keep acids from coming back up.
Right.
Throat cancer is
Throat
one
cancer,
of them.
yeah.
I mean, having your stomach open into your mouth
Yeah.
is something that would nutritionally would harm her.
Yeah.
And it's very unpredictable. The infection possibilities in death are much greater.
Yeah. Let's get into the legal side of this. Okay, you've got the case. Now what do you have to prove?
Well, the case was brought to me by another lawyer who needed our level of expertise. And this is a case of what we call a product defect or product contamination. So we had to prove that the product itself was defective, and because of their denial of responsibility, we had to prove how the water got in there, because they were trying to blame it on the bottling company.
Right.
So we had to prove the bottling company didn't use this,
Yeah.
and we proved that within feet of this bottle was a very same liquid, Super Trump,
Right.
that's used for dishwashing.
Which was present at Harvey's Casino.
It was sitting right next to this.
Yeah.
But another very challenging legal issue here was the fact that if we were to go into court in Nevada, in the backyard of the casinos where they have all the power,
And many of the jurors could be potential employees or employees of Harvey's.
and many of the judges may be supported in their campaigns
Yeah.
as well. So we used a doctrine under the law to bring that case here to San Francisco because of the amount of advertising and revenue that they got from San Francisco.
Right.
So Julia Ellis got a fair trial.
I thought that was very clever of you to do that, because you had to subpoena all the information about how much money they spent in advertising, marketing their casino, and where. And I think you discovered that, what was it, 65% of their advertising budget was spent right here in San Francisco, right?
Their advertising budget was here. They bus people from here up to Nevada. They fly what they call the whales up there. And what we did find out that they were sort of concealing is that they are giving management advice to the Indian casinos here in California. So this was a new way to hold them responsible. Nobody before had ever brought a casino here to San Francisco, and it took hours and hours of work to accomplish that.
Yeah, and they didn't want to come here because it was an unfriendly venue, right?
They didn't want to be anywhere near San Francisco where people didn't work for the casino and didn't have the casino driving the economy. Not that it would be an unfriendly venue, it would be a fair venue.
Fair venue. Now, what was the end result? What was the verdict?
Well, the end result was compensation for Ms. Ellis in excess of $3 million.
Yes.
And it was fair compensation for all that she'd been through, whereas the offer from the casino in compensating her was by far less than that and would not have provided her full compensation and really wouldn't have recognized her as a human and recognized the suffering that she'd been through.
In going through all of this, what would you say was the most significant change as a result of this case in dealing with food safety at casinos?
Well, a big part of what we try to do as lawyers who represent people is to make change so no one else has to suffer it. The health department came in as we started the investigation. We found fault with their food and beverage policies. They didn't have proper safeguards. Now that casino follows the law, has new procedures, and has their beverages separate from their caustic materials. So hopefully what else comes out of this is that no one else will suffer, and food product safety has been brought to the attention of all the people engaged in that business.
Excellent. Today we're fortunate to have Julia with us, so let's bring her on right now. It is my great pleasure to introduce Julia Ellis to the show. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You went through a horrific experience, didn't you?
I did.
Picking up that bottle, we all saw it, and drinking, and right away it was like burning, right?
Correct.
What was going through your mind?
I was dying.
Immediately you were thinking that?
Immediately.
Yeah. Went over to the bartender, he didn't believe you, did he?
No, he thought I was scamming.
Yeah. And then you went to the hospital.
Yes.
And they couldn't treat you because they didn't know what you had drank, right?
Correct. Yes.
Wow, you must have been in extraordinary pain.
It was excruciating pain. It was like having probably 3 billion to 5 billion pins and needles just being shot through you.
Yeah. And when did they finally, because it went out to that, tested at the hazmat center, when were they finally able to do something for you at the hospital?
After I was transferred to Kaiser.
And that was in San Francisco?
That was in San Francisco, yes.
So this is hours later?
This is days.
Days. And what are they giving you for your pain, for the burning sensation?
Morphine.
Morphine.
Morphine. It was the only thing they could do. They did an endoscopy the next morning and found out that I had 2nd and 3rd degree burns throughout my esophagus. One area was burned very badly. And there wasn't really anything that they knew to give me to reduce the pain, because at that time they still hadn't found what type of chemical was in the bottle.
Once they discovered it was Super Trump, same as Drano basically, what did they start giving you to start healing you?
They put me on, I was on heavy doses of morphine, and then I was also on fentanyl. Fentanyl and an antibiotic, very, very strong antibiotics for infection. And then they were just, they were watching me for eating. And they said I couldn't go home until I could swallow.
Yeah.
And I couldn't even swallow my own saliva. So there was no way I was
You
going
couldn't
home.
swallow your saliva because it was painful, or it was physically impossible?
You couldn't, it
Swallow
was
it
physically
all.
impossible.
Yeah.
Physically impossible. I was, spitting up constantly.
Now, this has been a number of years since this happened. How are you today?
It's been 4 years, 4.5 years. Yeah, 4.5 years. How am I today? Cautious.
Cautious.
I still will not drink out of bottled water,
Yes.
and that unless I fill the bottle myself. Anxious when I eat at restaurants because I still have problems with stoppage.
Yeah.
And if my esophagus goes into a spasm, then I have to take nitroglycerin to relax the muscle in the esophagus.
And does that do that right away for you?
It takes anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes.
Really? So you're under medication continually, aren't
Yes.
you? But it's altered your life totally, hasn't it?
It's completely changed my life. Completely changed my life. I had a large, huge circle, and that we, eating out, theater, a lot of fun things that I was doing, and that a lot of the people that I'm associated with, or let's put it this way, that I was associated with, people don't know how, sometimes people, they don't understand
What
And
you
then-
go through.
what you go through, and,
Yeah.
and so they kind of wean away from you.
Yeah.
So my circle of friends has changed.
Yeah. As a result of really a magnificent job that Chris did for you
He did. Excellent.
in getting it moved to the right venue,
Right.
and also, discovering the truth. What is your overall opinion of the Dolan Law Firm?
Oh, Chris puts his whole heart into it. He
Genuinely.
genuinely, yeah,
Yeah.
he doesn't stop. He doesn't stop until he has succeeded. And in my case, being that the incident happened in Nevada,
Yeah.
he had to get the venue held in California.
Yeah.
And he researched every possible angle and
Yeah.
everything, and he did an excellent job.
Yeah, I thought that was very smart, really,
I thought-
about finding where they spend most of their money, because
Yes.
that's where you do most of your business.
Exactly.
Right.
And
What do you, as a result of this legal process, because this is probably maybe only the first experience you had, right?
It
In the
is.
legal system. What is your opinion about the legal system and how it works here in America?
It worked well for me. I'm very happy. I was a little concerned about the attitude of some of the jurors. Some of them could be very mean, very mean. A lot of people just didn't get the gist of the fact that how damaged my esophagus
Oh, absolutely.
was.
When I watched, and we shot it earlier in the show, you putting this almost garden hose down
Bougie.
your throat. I mean, I just totally, it was ripping your throat open as you're pushing it down, isn't it?
It was ripping through the
How
scar
did you,
tissue.
I watched, we watched it, and I don't understand how, if it's hurting so much, you keep pushing it down. Because it's got to be like 3 feet long.
I needed to swallow.
Whoa.
I mean, you do
What
what, you
about
need.
breathing? What about
You need to-
breathing?
you
Did this
need to do-
affect, your breathing at all?
Only when I have a panic attack.
Oh my God.
Only when I panic.
You go to any casinos anymore?
Absolutely not. You can't get me near them.
Wow. Well, listen, I want to thank you very, very much for coming on the program.
You're welcome.
Sorry you had to go through what you did. I'm glad you met up with Chris here, but thank you very much for spending time with us.
Thank you for having me.
Chris, what a wonderful job you did on this case. When you take a case, as a lot of lawyers when they look at it, what is your philosophy in settling a case and taking it to trial?
So I'm not a settlement lawyer, I'm a trial lawyer. And my philosophy is pretty straightforward. If you won't pay fair, come to the table and offer my clients what is right. If you won't give it to them, I'll take it from you.
How do you figure what is fair?
How do I figure what's fair?
Yeah.
Fair is what my client is satisfied with. Fair is what is just compensation. And I do enough of this work that I know what's fair and what isn't fair. So fair is, it can be difficult to pinpoint because a lot of these injuries are so unusual.
Yeah.
But fair is what makes sense and what makes my client feel that they're a person and that they have ultimately been recognized.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you handled this case. You did a great job, especially moving it to San Francisco, and I want to thank you very much for being on our program.
Thank you. It's an honor.
Thanks for joining us. You can get more information about our guest and the issues at insiderexclusive.com.